Anyway, this is where we want to welcome in Jerry Falwell Jr. He is the president of Liberty University. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to ask you your thoughts on this Pittsburgh shooting. I know you've been very, very supportive of Israel, and especially the president's efforts on Israel. You've been an integral, I would say, advisor really to the president on all of these issues. Your impressions of what happened, whatever you'd like to say about it.
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you, Gina. And I actually was speaking with the president last night about it, and I told him that I just couldn't believe that the media, first thing they did was try to find a way to politicize it. That's so disrespectful to the victims and their families. And, to me, if it wasn't so irresponsible, it would almost be funny to watch the mainstream media destroy the last little bit of credibility that they had by doing something as stupid as trying to blame the president right before a midterm for the acts of just a deranged, evil person who, the same thing with those fake bombs. It was just, I just think they're completely self-destructing, and that's not what we shouldn't be trying to politicize something like this. We should be mourning for the victims and their families. We should be praying for them, and we should. And what you said about President Trump is right. The first thing he did as president was rebuild the relationship that President Obama had destroyed with Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. And he has been the most, I retweeted somebody yesterday who said he's been the most pro-Israel president in America's history. And there's no question about that.
Jerry, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish, please.
No, I was going to say there's not an anti-Semitic bone in President Trump's body. And anybody that knows anything about him knows that. It's just more fake news.
Yeah, and to that end, do you think this tragedy is one of the last tipping points between America and the mainstream media, especially the left-leaning mainstream media? Now, the media, we know this. Your family has had its share of challenges with the mainstream media being evangelical Christians, not considered a protected class by the liberal elite. So you have these media people, those who control the narrative, in New York and D.C. and Los Angeles, very out of touch with mainstream America. But anecdotally, Jerry, when we look at the rest of mainstream America and their response to this massacre, this tragedy, the Muslim community raised $150,000 for the victim. The Christian community has come together with the Jewish community. No one is blaming anybody. It seems to be only the mainstream media trying to take this tragedy and use it against the president because of the grudge they hold against him for winning the election. You interface with people around the country, around the world. Do you think this is one of the tipping points that will finally have Americans tell the mainstream media, enough is enough is enough, get back to journalism?
I think we've already passed that point. I think that's why President Trump was elected in 2016. People for 30 years watched the mainstream media pretend to be neutral and then, slipped in, jabs at conservatives every chance they got. That was back in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
Then they moved to just being overtly partisan and a wing, sort of an arm of the Democratic Party. And people wised up. People are smarter than the media thinks they are.
Right.
And they figured out what they're up to. And I think the more they do now, all they're doing is just digging the hole deeper. And it doesn't mean they won't have some success with some people who are low information voters and don't understand what's politics and whatever. But that's the only people that are falling for this nonsense anymore. It's the average American has figured out that the media is only interested in the welfare of the elitists, not the average Americans. They're interested in globalism, and Americans believe that our government's job is to put America first and to take care of its own citizens first. We've always been the most generous people in the world to others in need around the world. But the only reason we've been able to do that is because we put America first. We've had free enterprise, we've had freedom, we've had prosperity. Without those things, you can't do anything to help the poor. And
You-
so
You're
it's
absolutely
just,
right. It's so true.
Common sense.
Yeah, and you and I discussed some of this. We actually met the night of the inauguration, you and your beautiful wife. And Reverend, you were an early supporter of the president. You took a lot of heat for that early on, but the president has maintained excellent ratings especially among white evangelical voters. According to the latest Fox News poll, 74% of likely voters approve of the job he's doing and just 25% disapprove. Do you feel vindicated for the criticism that you took in supporting this president early on, really much to the chagrin of many in the evangelical community? You and I were sort of, I feel like in some ways, standing alone with a few others, Pastor Scott and some others that were there early on, but it was a tough ride for a while. Do you feel vindicated by the things that the president has accomplished for the evangelical community?
I was with Sarah Palin this summer, and she and I were trying to remember who supported him first, Sarah or me, and we were pretty close at the same time. But it was awfully cold that night when we met in D.C., and we got lost on the streets of D.C. looking for a car. And
Yes.
So I think you might have forgotten. I told you I'm not a reverend. I'm a president of the world's largest Christian university. But I did take a lot of heat from the evangelical community, and because I supported Trump. And the reason I supported him is because he's a businessman, and I wasn't 100% sure, and I don't think he was either, where he was going to come down on all the issues. He came down on the right side of just about every issue as he learned more and more about politics, moving from the business world. But I've supported him because he's a businessman, and Liberty University only exists because of entrepreneurialism. And my father came from a business family, and we just learned over the years what it takes to build something from nothing, and that's what America has done over here since it was founded.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to be willing to fail and get up again and try again. You've got to sacrifice everything, not live a life of luxury if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, trying to start something from scratch, and to turn a country around like we turned this university around that was once deep in debt.
That, of course, is Liberty University. Yes, where you're the president.
Yeah, Liberty University. I'm sorry. Yeah, but President Trump, my opinion was he needed to do for the country what we have been able to do here at Liberty over the last 10, 12, 15 years.
Yeah, how far do you think he's gotten on that, Mr. Falwell? Do you think he's accomplished that, or are there measures you would like to see? Because we had the Johnson Amendment. So many things have really spoken to the hearts of evangelicals in ways that maybe in some cases we didn't even expect. What's left on that list? And I'm sorry, about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, I think that what's left on the list is just to get a Congress that fully supports him. The only things he hasn't been able to accomplish have been the fault of Congress. John McCain coming back to vote against the repeal and replacement of Obamacare was one of the key obstructions to what he was trying to accomplish. But I think we've got to get a Congress that will support him in cutting spending, not just taxes. And I think we've got to get that border wall built. And I think he's moving in that direction. I just hope the American people see how important this election is, this midterm is, and I hope the conservatives show up en masse to keep control of the House and the Senate. I believe that's going to happen.
All right, Jerry Falwell Jr., president of the fine Liberty University and true patriot. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Yeah, thanks very much.
It's an honor. Thank you, Gina.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more breaking news coverage, exclusive interviews, and great videos, click over here to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And don't forget to download the free Newsmax TV app. Newsmax TV, it's real news for real people.